This presentation, we're going to be talking about the final two movements of the big three in terms of powerlifting. We're going to be talking about squat and bench press, and then just some different variations that we would see with those. So now looking at our squat and our bench press, here we go. The squat is a movement that activates the largest, most powerful muscles in the body. Those muscles can be found in our lower half of our body. Those tend to be the strongest, biggest muscles that we have. And it is potentially the greatest test for lower body strength. The major muscles that we see within a squat are our quadriceps, our hamstrings, our gastrocnemius, and our glutes. Now, these are the major muscles that we see being utilized in a squat. The squat is very much a total body movement in regards to how we stabilize throughout the rest of our body to keep that weight up, to keep ourselves moving properly without crumbling underneath the weight. So some secondary muscles would be muscles at the hip and ankle joints. The abdominals help us stabilize through the core and the spinal erectors as well. We can also see some muscles elsewhere in the body. Like I said, it's a movement that pretty much utilizes everything to a certain extent. It's just these are going to be the ones that we see doing most of the work. The purpose of the squat is to train muscles around the knees and the hip joints. It helps develop strength in the lower back as well, and it helps with basic execution of skills utilized both in athletic competition as well as daily living. Another big thing, just with any movement, it's going to really help with joint and bone health due to the stress that we put on it in a good way. But there's so much more purpose behind that. These are just kind of the main ones that we like to look at when we look at the squat within a training program. Some variations of the squat, bilaterally speaking. So when we talk about bilateral, we're going to be talking about both sides of the body and both body parts on either side, symmetrically speaking, moving in the exact same fashion at the exact same time. This is different from unilateral, in which only one body part or side of the body is working while the other one is not. So some bilateral variations of the squat would be our bodyweight squat. That'd be the most simple version of a squat that we could think of as we progress further. So from there, we can do a counterbalance squat, in which as we squat down, we're going to be pushing a weight away from our body, serving as a counterbalance. From there, we can do a goblet squat, which is what we see in this right-hand picture on the lower side of the screen. We can also do a goblet squat to the box, giving us kind of an aiming point when we do perform our squat. We can do a front squat with a barbell or a front squat to the box. A back squat with a barbell to the box can be another one as well. And then a safety bars, which we see right up here. A special bar that kind of drapes over our shoulders. It also keeps, similar to the trap bar, keeps the weight centered in our body rather than the front squat in which it's in front, the back squat in which it's behind or on the back half of our body. This keeps it right in the middle of our body. Some unilateral movements for a squat, so one side of the body at a time. Begins with our body weight split squat. So that's what we see right here in this picture. It's almost like a lunge of sorts. This is actually a goblet squat in which we're holding that goblet position. We can also see a front split squat with a barbell, a back split squat, safety bar split squat, a single leg squat to bench, and a single leg squat off bench are both considered knee prehabs, which we'll talk about with lower body stuff. Now, one thing that's interesting, I think, for most people to know is that this is considered a split squat rather than a lunge because of the fact that you are staying in one position the entire time. You're going to be moving up and down in this movement, but you're never going to reset. So you always have that front foot in the front, that back foot in the back. They're never going to be side by side. A lunge is more active in the sense of you either step forward into a lunge, backwards, lateral, and so on, but you're always resetting at the top, whereas a split squat, you're staying in that split squat position. So looking at our front squat, the setups that we see with that, this is one in which we'll approach the bar. When we find that bar, we're going to find the middle of the bar with our neck. So that can be the rough area of our powerlifting bar. Rather than our Olympic bar, tends to be a little smoother in that area. There's going to be a rough patch right in the middle for our strength bars. We're going to find our grip. We can do a clean grip, which is what we see here in the middle. We can do a genie or a cross grip, which is what we see right here at top. Or we can use straps with that clean grip. All it's going to be depending upon is the comfort that you have in the movement and how you want that to be set up personally. The bar should rest across your clavicles. or the muscle shelf on your shoulders. So that's going to be right across the top. You should be able to remove your hands in any of these positions and the bar will stay there. So it's really important that we keep those elbows high to maintain that shelf of muscle that we find on our shoulders so that we can keep that bar across our shoulder blade or our collarbones or clavicle. Our feet should be about shoulder width apart with the toes pointed slightly out so those knees can move over those toes. And then we want to brace our core as well so that we can stabilize that weight properly. So as we go into the downward phase, we're going to take a deep breath in. We're going to tighten the core or brace the core so that way it stays nice and firm as we go through the movement. We're going to want to emphasize a big butt and a big chest so that we can maintain that neutral spine. And we're going to sit those hips back, bend the knees, and push the knees out as we lower. We notice those knees are being pushed back. He's sitting back on his heels, feeling that full foot in the ground, however. Just putting that mental weight through the heels with his hips back. We're going to want to avoid something called valgus, which is the buckling of your knees. We want to avoid that because over time, if we continuously squat with that type of form, we can actually start to really tear away at those knees and cause injury. We want to feel that full foot on the ground with the mental weight through the heels, pushing that ground away as we go up, but we want to lower until the thighs are parallel to the ground. We don't necessarily have to go butt to the ground. As long as we get to that parallel position, we should have the same benefits as if we were to go lower without as much risk. As we go for the upward phase, we're going to drive through the midfoot. We're going to feel the whole foot on the ground, pushing that ground away. Our knees and hips are going to extend forward as we get up into that upward posture of the front squat. We're going to continue to drive the knees out, avoiding the valgus as we see here in this picture on the right-hand side. And we're going to want to maintain a neutral spine throughout the process on the way down and up. We want to avoid having our chest collapse because that's going to actually cause us to have low back issues. We want, similar to the deadlift, we want those shoulders and those hips to rise at the exact same time. We should be feeling this primarily in the quads and the glutes in regards to the muscles doing most of the work. Our bench press is going to be a commonly used movement for our upper body strength and hypertrophy development. Different equipment we can use for the bench press is going to be our barbell, our dumbbell, or a machine. And we can also adjust the angle at which we're doing this movement. It can be at a flat position as we see here. We can incline that bench so that we're going upwards at an angle, or we can do a decline in which we're downwards at an angle. Bench press muscle utilization. This is a really cool chart that I found for those who are interested in how many different muscles we're utilizing during a bench press and to what extent we're using them. We see a list of muscles being used throughout the movement of bench press. Some of them are no surprise, like the pectoralis major is an obvious one when we talk about the bench press, but some of them might be a surprise in the sense of maybe you didn't realize that, for instance, your traps were doing any work, or your rhomboids, those things on the back of your body, the posterior aspect of your body. So we do see on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being a major contributor like we see with the pecs, 1 being a minor contributor like we see with the traps and rhomboids. So if you're interested, take a look. It's a pretty interesting chart that we see there. We didn't have the same one for the lower body, the strength movement, the squat, because there's just too many muscles to list that we see being used. So the purpose of that bench press, it does help with overall strength and upper body strength. We obviously see hypertrophy purposes for it when we start to increase the reps and sets that we're doing. We also see joint and bone health similar to the squat and any other movement we see resistance training wise. Other reasons why we may be using it, but these are the main ones. So some bilateral variations of the bench press. So once again, 2 sides working at the same time in the same fashion, symmetrically speaking. We can see a dumbbell bench press at a flat incline and decline angle. We see here at an incline angle dumbbell bench. We can do the same 3 angles with a barbell bench. And then some other ways that we can vary this up would be the grip. We can go a normal grip on a barbell, a close grip on a barbell. We can do a neutral grip on dumbbells so the palms are facing towards one another. With the dumbbell bench, I prefer to have my wrists at a 45-degree angle, keeping me in a slightly neutral position. We can add chains to it. We can add bands to it. to kind of change how the weight feels at any given portion of the movement. Tsunami bars are ones that actually shake as you're doing it, forcing you to stabilize through the core and your shoulders a little bit more. We can have bands that are actually pulling the bar up, which is going to cause the bar to feel lighter at the top. What that's going to do is going to be considered overspeed training, just a way of getting comfortable moving heavier weight fast, and stronger in different portions of the movement. A twist or a neutral grip bar is another way to really load it up and keep your hands in a neutral position, and so on. Some unilateral variations, we can do an alternating dumbbell bench. So one hand moves at a time. What we see here, odds are he's holding at the top as the other arm is moving up and down. As soon as he completes one rep with that side, he'll probably go to the other side as he holds that up with one hand. We can alter the angle in which we're doing that, flat, incline, decline. We can also remove one of these weights that he's holding and do a single arm dumbbell bench. What that would be doing is actually incorporating a lot more core stabilization for the individual performing the movement. So that can also be done at a flat, incline, and decline angle. Some things to think about when setting up for the bench press is 5 points of contact. When we talk about 5 points of contact, we're talking about both feet. That's points 1 and 2. We're talking about your butt, your upper back, and your head. All 5 points of contact, feet on the ground, butt, back, and head on the bench, should be maintained throughout the entire movement. Our grip should be symmetrical. In our pronated grip, our palms will face away from our face. Our thumb should always be wrapped around the bar, so that way we can maintain control of the bar and reduce any risk of that coming out of our own grip. A closer grip is going to actually make you utilize your triceps a little bit more, and a wider grip is going to make you use your anterior deltoids. You can choose the grip that you want based on your own personal preference, or you can choose it based on what you're trying to achieve out of the movement. With our liftoff, the spotter is going to you're going to give the spotter a 3-2-1 countdown. The spotter is going to be in a straddled position to the side of your body, so that way you feel comfortable with the space that you get, but also it gives them an opportunity to really help with that bar as needed. After you give that 3-2-1 countdown, they're going to lift that bar up and over your chest, and they're going to position it right above your chest nice and gracefully, so that way it's not a really quick and jerky motion. You're going to have your elbows fully extended, and you're going to begin the downward phase. You're going to lower the bar to touch the chest approximately at the nipple line. You're going to have that in a controlled tempo, so you're not bouncing the weight off your chest. And your wrists are going to stay nice and stiff. You want those wrists stiff and straight throughout the entire movement to maintain the force that's going to be driving that weight up. If we bend our wrists back, we actually lose all that force that we used to have with our wrists straight, because there's nothing behind the backs of our palms or the tops of our hands. So we want to have those nice and straight to maintain that force and maintain the 5 points of contact throughout the whole movement. As we go up, we're going to push the bar away from our body, so upwards until our elbows are fully extended. We're going to drive through our feet, driving our feet into the ground to get a little extra push. We're going to keep our wrists stiff and straight, not bending them back, maintaining the 5 points of contact with the feet, the butt, the back, and the head, and avoid arching our back. So some hands-on movements that you can practice with. You can do a goblet squat, 2x3. It says each, but you're just doing it with 2 legs, so just 2x3 with that. You can go a goblet split squat, which can be 2x5. So let's actually flip those around. The split squat will be 2x3 each leg. The goblet squat will be 2x5. Our barbell front squat, if you have one available. We can also do a barbell bench when you have time. So as always, let me know if you have any questions. Next week will be our final presentations. We have our upper and lower pushes and pulls. So have a great week.